Hello and thank you for joining the midweek edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. The general election is just 30 days away. How set are you for the polls? Today on the program, INEC accuses politicians of making payments to voters, says no voting with temporary voter cards, as new Inspector General of Police promises to be neutral. Gencos threaten to shut down power plants nationwide as electricity consumers lodge 390,889 complaints in just 9 months. And later on the show, Edgar Mohimi remains Lagos State Commissioner of Police. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Wahid Bakare, and Emeka Madunago. Journalist Hangout starts now. Without a doubt, curbing the menace of vote buying and selling remains the biggest challenge facing the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC in its quest to deliver credible polls in February and March this year. For the electoral umpire, the political elite constitute the major obstacle in getting to the El Dorado. INEC has now accused some of them of already collecting account numbers of voters and making part payment for the purchase of votes. All these aimed at circumventing INEC in its bid to check the act. The body has, however, declared that no voter will be allowed to cast ballot with the temporary voter cards in the elections. According to INEC, the card reader, which would be deployed for the elections, is structured to read only the permanent voter cards, that's the PVCs. Meanwhile, the new police boss, Mohammed Adamu, has promised to be neutral to all parties in the elections.
As a nation, we have had enough of electoral violence. Hence, while the Nigeria police under my watch shall work with the Independent National Electoral Commission and sister security agencies in guaranteeing a peaceful and secure space for all political parties and the citizens to freely exercise their electoral rights, we shall not hesitate to identify, isolate, and bring to deserved justice any person or groups that attempt to threaten our sacred democratic order. I call on all political actors to assist the police and other law enforcement agencies in sustaining the gains recorded in our democratic journey. They should always remember that politics is a game guided by rules, and it behoves them to play the game within the dictates of such rules. On our part, we assure the nation of our determination to play our own role fairly but firmly towards guaranteeing a peaceful electoral process and a credible outcome.
Acting Inspector General of Police there promising neutrality in the forthcoming polls. Gentlemen, let's begin with the preparedness or perhaps the security angle to the forthcoming election. There's a new sheriff in town and he's promising neutrality. It appears promises are all we have. Do we have enough time to test this capacity to make these a reality in just less than 30 days to the elections?
That remains to be seen. Whether his foot soldiers would be neutral is an answer that is blowing in the wind. I want to believe that a situation in which some politicians are allowed to buy votes and others are arrested does not allow for a level playing ground. There's no need to buy people's votes in the first place. It's an immoral and irresponsible thing to do. But we've seen in the recent past that in some places, politicians have a field day buying votes, and in some places, politicians are denied the opportunity to buy votes. So when security agents allow some politicians to buy votes unhindered and stop other politicians from doing that, then there's no neutrality. Yes, we agree that it is wrong to buy votes, but there has to be neutrality. If you want to stop vote buying, stop it across board. Don't give some people opportunities to do it.
While stopping others
Yes.
from committing
Because
the same crime.
I've seen videos of security men looking away while a politician was sharing naira, was shelling out naira notes to voters. I've also seen videos where INEC staff, I want to believe the ad hoc staff, were even the ones giving the money to voters.
Voters.
So as you vote, they are right there, they sit there, they are looking at you, and they give you the money. You go ahead, and then you vote.
That was in previous elections. We saw Osun and Ekiti and some plans that INEC put in place to ensure that vote buying, doesn't continue to show its face the way it's done in previous times. They restructure the polling booths. They ensure that voters do not enter those places, with their phones and all of that. INEC also said that in this forthcoming election, the polling papers itself will be rolled in such a way that nobody can tell who you have voted for. But let's look at the rationale behind politicians giving voters money. They say they give them money now to collect their voters' identification number. The rationale is that they are acting on the notion that the system can indeed be hacked into, such that card readers somehow can be preloaded on these machines ahead of the election. I'm hoping that is not true.
Well, you can't rule out anything when it comes to Nigerian politicians. And every Nigerian politician is desperate, to be in power at all costs. And INEC has come out to say that this time around we are going to put in some measures that will make it extremely difficult for you to buy votes. In the past, what they did was that they will station somebody very close to the polling booth. Another person will be some meters away from it. As soon as you finish casting your ballot, you show it to that person, and it will give signal. I think they did that in Ondo or so, where they call it Diboko Sebe. They will give you a signal. You give a sort of signal to the man that is holding the money that this fellow that is coming towards you actually voted for us, I've confirmed. So you go there and just get your money. So because INEC can now say that we are going to make it extremely difficult for you to do all of this, they also devised a means. You will be shocked that they have been moving from house to house. A friend of mine had a similar experience, last weekend. He was at home, then a man came and approached the wife, telling her about, the need for her to give out a PVC in return for a certain sum of money. That once you give me your account number, the next thing you'll get is alert. And the husband overheard them discussing it, and they had to come out. What are you doing in my compound? When the man couldn't explain himself, he was asked to leave. So the more you say you want to prevent them, the more they also find a means around it because of their desperation to be in power at all costs.
By collecting the PVCs, politicians' intention here might be to deprive voters in the strongholds of their opportunity. In the strongholds of the opponents, deprive them the opportunity of voting. But we are seeing a situation whereby politicians collect account numbers and transfer money to prospective voters. What do you expect the INEC to do this time? It appears we might have to appeal to the conscience of the voters. How easy is that going to be?
You should answer the question. In a country where hunger is a major denominator, it will be difficult, when you talk about appealing to their conscience. So what about their stomachs? So it's not to say that Nigerians are easily corrupt and Nigerians are generally corruptible. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you see, the fact of the matter is this. The desperation of Nigerian politicians is even to the extent that if prospective voters refuse such inducement, they even risk being harmed or killed. You've already heard in some states, violent destruction of billboards. Some days ago, one young man was said to have been killed in Kogi State by some thugs, and he was said to be a supporter of a candidate. So when you see this kind of desperation, it only shows that, just like there was a poster I saw today somewhere, the politician said poverty alleviation continues for another 4 years. And I was wondering, so this man believes if he wins, his constituents who have been in poverty, in his own estimation, will also continue to depend on poverty alleviation for another 4 years. So it speaks volume of how Nigerian politicians see the electorate are just mere tools. You know, if we can just give them some naira. If they don't agree, we threaten them or can even kill them. They are disposable, which is very, very unfortunate. So what INEC needs to do is that the security age, we're in a technological age, you know. There are only very few things you can hide these days.
That's right.
You know, movement of money and all of these things. That's why we signed all these declarations, the Egmont Declaration and all those things, you know, to track movement of funds, illicit funds and all of that. So instead of just making it a moral issue, appealing to the conscience, you also do the needful. You fight crime. If this is a financial crime, it is a financial crime. And EFCC has said so. So what they need to do is to deploy technology, deploy intelligence. It's not difficult to know when politicians are dishing out money.
INEC even says that it's going to trace how much money parties are going to spend during campaigns and all that.
Well,
how feasible that is?
Well,
have
INEC
to
has
wait
been
and see.
saying that over the years, over and over, it will track money, campaign financing. But I think that's something that may require a public hearing by the National Assembly for Nigerians to really talk about how to deal with this issue of campaign financing, because it manifests in different ways. You can see now that politicians have even become very ingenious, different ways. You know, they can't do this, they can't do this.
We have to
but their
wrap this
supporters
particular
are
discussion.
the ones doing it.
Babajide, the word on the street is that politicians knock at the door, pay as much as 30,000 naira to prospective voters in exchange of their PVC. If the security operatives truly have the willpower, perhaps they can nip this in the bud, don't you think?
It's difficult. It's difficult. I don't think at this stage, given how impoverished our people are, given the desperation of the politicians, given the very low civil populace police ratio in Nigeria, it's the lowest in the world, I don't think we can do much. What happened in Osun State showed clearly that politicians have reached a different level of desperation when it comes to buying votes. They don't have to buy votes on election day anymore. So if you like, station 1 million soldiers with armor tanks, with gun trucks, they will not buy votes on election day. They gather people, get them to swear, get them to jump over guns, give them concussions to drink. It happened in Osun State. Give them concussions to drink, get them to swear that they are going to vote for a particular candidate. And that's what happened. So now, if that does not stop, you then move again to camp voters. It happened in the hours leading to the rerun in Osun. A particular party moved voters to a town nearby and was hoping that on election day, after having thoroughly taken care of them, given them as much as more than 100,000 per person, then they will be able to vote on election day. But on election day, security men who had been stationed at entry points were asking, where are you people coming from? They say, but we are residents of this town. If you are residents of this town,
what were you doing outside?
Well, what were you doing in a different town? So those guys were effectively disenfranchised.
And they could not vote.
Yeah, they could not vote. So that's a lesson. But I know, just as we said, these guys are very, very creative. They are very inventive. They are very ingenious. They will come up with other ideas.
And very desperate as well. Gentlemen,
Yes,
we have to
buy
move on.
votes.
When we return after this break, Genco's threatening to shut down power plants nationwide as electricity consumers lodged 390,889 complaints in 9 months. Stay with us. Glad to have you join us again. The electricity supply situation in Nigeria has stretched citizens to breaking point, yet respite appears to be far away. The electricity generation companies, or GENCOs as they are known, are threatening now to shut down power plants nationwide if the federal government fails to intervene in the challenges they're battling with. Executive Secretary of Association of Power Generation Companies, Joy Ogaji, said challenges like low gas supply, ongoing maintenance of power plants, and low demand by electricity distribution companies or DISCOs are becoming unbearable for them. Hence, they may have no other option than to shut down power plants. The situation is no doubt an unpalatable one for everyone. According to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, about 390,889 complaints were lodged by consumers in 9 months. Billing and metering issue constituting the major headache. But who bears the biggest brunt here? That appears to be the million-dollar question. Bearing in mind that last year, Babajide, in August, Genco's threatening to shut down. According to them, the TCN just did not transmit available volume of electricity. In 2017, they threatened to shut down as well for not being paid their services by the Nigeria Electricity Bulk Trader in 3 months. Why the consistent threat?
Yeah, it's has to tell you that there are far more problems in that sector than we are ready to admit. I see people gloat over the fact that we can generate 7,000 plus megawatts and the rest. But they do not talk about the fact that we can barely transmit more than 5,000 megawatts. Last year, the highest we did was 5,222 megawatts. And it lasted just about 24 hours. If you try to generate in the region of transmit in the region of 6,000 megawatts, there will be a system collapse. Of course. You know, last year we had many system collapses because the grid is weak. So you are not going to be able to transmit anything beyond 5,000 megawatts. Anything above it, you can't get to 6,000 megawatts. And that is the problem. We have the capacity to do better than we are doing now. I praise this government for one thing, because investment in transmission had not been consistent over the years. Under them, they are investing in transmission. They're investing so much in transmission. So things will change over a period of time. But for now, Nigerians will still continue to suffer problems arising from electricity supply because the grid is weak. Distributors have the capacity to distribute more than 6,300 megawatts. They have the capacity, but the grid, the transmission is the big problem. So what is the point? You generate so much, but they can't transmit what you generate. That's why in August last year, they complained. They said if you do not do something about the fact that we generate so much volume that you are unable to transmit, that there will be problems. But those threats amount to nothing. There's nothing you can do about the problems. You can't take remedial steps about the problems of the national grid. You can't. You can only complain and complain. And then, of course, we'll talk about the gas constraints. It's a major problem. Out of the 28 power plants that we have, 25 are gas-fired, which means that once you suffer gas constraints, those plants will not be in operation. It's either they shut them down or you just wait until you're able to solve the problem. So, and that's why we are saying, look at alternative sources of power generation. There are other sources. The dependence on thermal plants, as we have seen, is a problem. Because once you do not have gas, then it becomes a problem.
A challenge.
Once they can't pay for gas supply to them, they will go and disconnect them. So you know that there is a problem of liquidity even in that sector. Whether they want government to give them another bailout, I really don't know, because when you are talking about you are unable to pay,
That's right.
who do you blame for your inability to pay?
The challenges now that Jenko's talking about: low gas supply, ongoing maintenance of power plants, low demand of electricity distribution companies or DISCOs. But then there are people who are saying that the federal government seemed to have paid over 1 trillion naira to Gencos and DISCOs since the commencement of the privatization sector. And you begin to wonder, if the sector is indeed privatized, why are we pumping so much money? And there appears to be little little value for the money we've spent over the years.
I think it is obvious that what had been spent so far, there is no commensurate reward, for it. Now, if you look at what the Gencos are really complaining about, the essence of every businessman is to make profit. But if I understand them very well, they're not even talking about profit. They're talking about fear, about losses now. That when those thermal plants, were installed, they were expected to produce a certain capacity. And we have a situation whereby, like Jide said, we don't have the capacity to distribute what they are generating. As at April last year, they said that on a daily basis, they could generate 7,484 megawatts, out of which only 3,985.15, could be distributed. Now, their complaint now is that if you continue in that capacity, if you are saying that we should not make optimal use of our plants, it means that at a certain time, it will have a telling effect, drastic one, on those plants. Not only that, they are also going to be using more gases, about 15 or 20% more gases at their own cost. So it means that they will be running at losses. Those are the complaints they are talking about, that we can't continue like that. Unfortunately, it's as if we don't understand the essence of power in this country. You can imagine wonders we can do if we have 24/7 power supply. Nigeria is a fertile land. One of the things that are drawing back investors are either security or lack of power. But if you look at security issue, it's not a general thing in Nigeria. Certain areas, But if you look at power issue, it's a national problem. As we are complaining in Lagos, they are complaining elsewhere that we don't have. And unfortunately, a lot of money had been spent. And you now begin to wonder, of what use is the money that we spent on those things, when at the end of the day, we are not getting the desired results.
Emeka, have we been able to really identify what the fundamental issues are here? They say in the privatization process, there are timelines, there are agreements, and DISCOs and Gencos don't appear to have met those timelines. As a matter of fact, the DISCOs declared force majeure in Northeast sometime last year. You begin to wonder, why are we here long after we have privatized the sector?
Yeah, basically, the economy, it's not been, we've had a lot of challenges with running this economy, and then again, in terms of, like Jide talked about earlier, liquidity, the capacity of these, the operators of these Gencos and DISCOs to actually fund the sector adequately is not there. I think it appears, and many Nigerians have said so, that many of the investors in these Gencos and DISCOs had an exaggerated expectation from the investment they were going into.
Yes.
They felt maybe because of the estimated billing, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe because of the estimated billing.
That they will be allowed to determine appropriate pricing.
Yes, so many things. So
let me hold you for a minute, Emeka, to take this call from Kasina. Good evening, Abdullahi.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Okay, my contribution is that in as much as we are talking about electricity in Nigeria, the only problem or the only thing that can solve electricity problem in Nigeria is when everybody is metered. In as much as we are not metered, actually, I think most of the electricity that are being generated will be going to losses. If you are going from any town in Nigeria today, from one town to another town, when you see the number of incandescent bulbs that are on, actually they will tell the amount of losses we are generating. So if government cannot intervene and ensure that everybody is metered, I'm telling you the problem of electricity in Nigeria can never be solved. And also Nigeria, when you come to northern part of the country, like here where I am, you see there is you see the amount of solar energy that is infusing on Katsina or in the northern part region, which is not tapped in Nigeria. In as much as Nigeria will allow each state to generate its own electricity, or each local government to generate its own electricity, you see the amount of energy that will be produced, and definitely will go a long way in solving electricity problem in Nigeria.
You made your point precisely, Nun Abdullah. Thank you for your contribution. You were talking about the
of course, in fact, he
expectations.
even spoke my mind, you know. Because if you look at it, if they are metered, if Nigerians are metered, it might even worsen the situation for these investors.
How do you mean?
Yeah, of course, when you don't supply power and somebody buys, let's say, loads his card for maybe 5,000 or 10,000, of course, the units remain there.
That's right.
You are the one losing, you know. So what it is that something that should be, your revenue is trapped.
Could that be the reason why we're having challenges?
That is one side of it. The other side, if you even look at it, well, the issue of metering is, you know, I think there's some politics in it, which the federal government may need to intervene in a very serious way, you know, to solve. I mean, if government is going to devote funds, emergency funding, to deal with this metering issue, I think it has to. Yes, I know it's a privatized sector, but you see, this thing is a national emergency. It should be treated as such. And then look at it again. You see, the discos, one of the things they said was, you know, one of the things the Gencos said was that the discos had, you know, that their demand had reduced. How come? That is strange, because you have a lot of industries that need power. The cost of diesel now is so high. You have a lot of companies running on diesel, a lot of industries running on diesel. You now find out that, okay, the same discos that are talking of low demand are now even reaching agreements with some of these factories, some of these quarries and all that, to supply them power for 12 hours in a day, especially overnight, you know, agreed to, and it's not a cheap option. So the fact of the matter is this, the truth has to be told about what is really going on in this
I get your point
sector.
precisely. Let's look at the complaints now. Over 390,000 complaints made in 9 months. The bulk of this is about billing and metering the issue. Emeka said we need federal government intervention. Is that the way forward now?
I don't know for how long government will be intervening in a sector that it says is almost, if we were to use the words of Fashola, almost totally privatized. Of course, he left out the fact that the transmission company of Nigeria was not privatized, in telling us to go and hold the Gencos and Discos by the jugular. You know, of course, we refuse to take his advice because the big problem in that sector remains transmission. Because, look, if you can transmit the two other legs of the power tripod will make more money. They stand to make more money. That's why they are complaining. But you are unable to even transmit what is generated to you. And transmission, you have 50%, federal government has 40% shares in Gencos, 40% shares in Discos. In the transmission leg, they have 100% control. But that is an issue for another day. Nigerians want to see what they are paying for. Many people would prefer to have those meters. We do not have the capacity to roll out meters for all electricity consumers across the country. But even rolling out meters, we have seen clearly in our peculiar environment that it is not the silver bullet that solves all the problems, because energy theft is rampant. People are bypassing those meters and illegally consuming electricity. Just look around. A few people will confess to you that, look, we found a way, Adogmosi, this. People are stealing electricity. They are stealing even for, the meters are there, but they are bypassing those meters.
But that wouldn't be an excuse for them not to provide meters, because not all Nigerians are stealing.
No, I'm not saying it's an excuse. But even when I'm saying that it's not what will solve all the problems. You can actually provide meters, and energy theft will make it difficult for electricity companies to break even. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I'm saying that there are all kinds of problems, and we have to address all of those problems for us to be able to solve this problem. You look for the general problem. You look at a country like India, where I'm told we borrowed this idea with our current roadmap. They first began by subsidizing the sector. A situation in which government says that it has privatized this sector, yet it is determining how much people should pay for consumed electricity. I don't think it's right, because whether we like it or not, and those guys, these guys will tell you, they are operating at a loss. They are not making, money from providing electricity to you and I. Remember the other day, they even boasted that, look, we can even decide that we'll give this up. It has almost reached that point. Until they are allowed to say, okay, today, it is actually they are paying, Nigerians are paying a lot less than they should be paying. Therefore, you give them the latitude, let the market determine what each person should pay. Maybe at that point, things will change, although it will be tough for Nigerians. But you can't have a situation in which government regulates pricing,
price for electricity.
and then you expect people to be excited and they'll be happy.
Let me take Yakubu's call from Lagos. Good evening, Yakubu.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Eli, and then good evening to Babajide and the rest of the team in the studio.
Good evening.
For me, the point is this. When they are starting this privatization of NEPA issue, the point is that the people that they sold this thing to, they lack the capacity. I may stand to correct, I may be wrong. Because some of them, they don't have the capacity to distribute all this light. Now, when the government generates light, now Babajide made us to know in the studio now that the generation issue is okay. But the distribution, what happened to it? And then they don't want to give Nigerian meters. They know that if they give us the meter, as one of your co-hosts said earlier, that if they give us the meter, assuming you don't give us light, the meter will remain, my money will remain the way it is. And then a station whereby they are giving us estimated bill. All those complaints that you are talking about earlier, it is estimated bill, a station whereby house will be giving 25,000, 50,000 without light. Nigerian government should hang off about this. If they really want to privatize, let them give it to people.
It's all right, Yakubu. Thank you very much for your contribution. What precisely will be the implication of having this threat, going through? Already the energy sector or the electricity sector has been diversified. Everybody has a generator. Do you think that we will all feel the impact if Gencos really shut down?
We will, in a way, in the sense that how many Nigerians can afford to run a generator 24 hours? We don't have the processing capacity of an average Nigeria. Has
How
really
many Nigerians
down.
need power for 24 hours? How many Nigerians have access to 24 hours power supply?
You'll be shocked that a lot of companies, a lot of
Industries,
they need it for a very long period of time.
Need it, yes.
And because of the cost
But there are
implication.
some companies like flour mills that have even been off a public electricity for years.
Yes,
even
for a while.
aluminium,
So if you look at it, a lot of Nigerians will not be able to afford it. You will be shocked that a lot of artisans depend so much on electricity. Most of the Okada riders you see in town, some of them, they are artisans. But because of the lack of electricity power supply, that's why you see some of them, opting for Okada riding and some other things like that. If you are not saying that, if they shut down, it will really affect a lot of things. Like I said, because of the cost implication of fueling your generator for a long time.
Absolutely. There are some who are saying the over 1 trillion naira we've spent since 2013, if this huge amount of money had been invested in alternative like, what do we call it now? Solar energy, the wind vanes of this world and all of that, that perhaps we would have done better than this. What are we really doing in getting alternatives, especially in the area of electricity supply?
I have to thank you very much for that question, because you just read my mind. I think these guys should realize that we are in the age of disruptive technology. A lot of things have been disrupted right now. You're talking of the electric car. You see what Tesla is doing, what a lot of these guys are doing, trying to reduce some of these things. So if they are not careful, what may happen is that somebody might just come up with a kind of a solution that provides more power to households, not just solar and wind, that provides easy solutions that you can just get, off the market.
Embedded power.
Very easy, embedded power, all kinds of solutions that will be so cheap that they will find out that these power plants are they will just become like the refineries. I hope they can move quickly and understand what is going on in the world.
Don't become the Nitels.
Of course, because if you look at it, they should look at the issue of the electric car. What Tesla is trying to do with the electric car, So definitely, if you can, for instance, charge the batteries of your car and run your car easily. So what it means is that what if some people invest in things like that, charging booths, and then you have more electric cars on the road? It will spill over to other parts of the economy.
We have to wrap up this segment. Babaji, let me hear your final thoughts on this. Do you see an end in sight to these, going forth and back between the federal government and GENCOs and DISCOs and all of that?
No,
anytime soon?
No. The problems are there. No matter how frequently we pretend like those problems are not there. Those problems occasionally will rear their heads. You know how many system failures we had last year?
That's right.
And many times gas constraints, cause this system failure. Because if you do not supply sufficient gas, then the plants won't be able to run. So on the average, every day, we have a shortening of about 1,500 megawatts arising from gas constraints. So that's a problem on its own. Then the problem of capacity for the grid. That is a problem that we also have to deal with. And you cannot solve that problem in a jiffy. You have to systematically invest in the grid, freshen up the machines, on a consistent basis. That is somehow we'll get there. But to imagine that those problems will go, no, they don't go. And for some of us, I always talk about the fact that I do not enjoy electricity. It's extremely painful, that you do not enjoy, you pay so much. Where I live, I do not really enjoy electricity. When I hear some Nigerians say, oh, I enjoy 22 hours of electricity, I tell them that you cannot talk about yourself alone. How about other people? There are communities where for a whole month people won't even have light.
For 10 years.
Even
years.
I caused us to go and do a story in Ekiti about a town where they do not even, they've not had electricity for many years. So as you are enjoying it where you are, ask your friends, ask other people, because if the problem has already been solved, with Nigeria electricity, we are awash with electricity supply, then what we are generating will be a lot higher than what we are generating now. Lagos State alone needs at least 3,000 megawatts, just Lagos. And if South Africa can be generating in excess of 45,000 megawatts, why should the giant of Africa be boasting about the fact that it generates about 7,000 megawatts that it cannot fully transmit? So these problems are there. But in my view, let us look for alternative sources of electricity generation. Look at the Mambila power plant. The Mambila project that has been there for so many years. Mambila alone, at the peak of its powers, will give us at least 3,500 megawatts. Just Mambila alone. Which means that if we are able to complete that project, it will be the most important power generating facility in our country. So why don't we just work hard to make sure that we finish that project? The last time I went to Taraba, there was even no road leading to the place.
Gentlemen, we have to move on now.
I think the project is being fired too.
How all of this play out subsequently. Well, there was a change of guard at the police hierarchy in Nigeria. On Tuesday, the erstwhile Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, bowed out of service for a new headsman, Mohammed Adamu, to take over. Similar change of baton was expected at the Lagos State Command same day, until a mild drama played out to halt the process. Kayode Egbetokun arrived in Lagos to take command from Edgar Mohimi. but instead was told that the scheduled handover will not hold. Imohimi, who addressed newsmen over the sudden twist, declared that he remains the State Commissioner of Police. Let's hear from him.
No, our first job is about order and directives. We were about concluding the handing and taking over procedure when we were instructed by our bosses from Abuja to suspend action for now. So there will be no change of guard for now.
There will be no change of guard for now. So, they say it's an order from above. Very dramatic, Babachide.
Yeah, there's a new IG, a new sheriff in town, who happens to be cosmates with Edgar Imohimi. And he felt that the best thing to do is to leave a man who has done so well in Lagos. Edgar is a professional policeman, operations inclined, and nobody would doubt the fact that he's been successful in Lagos. He's been one of the best police commissioners in recent memory.
Remember his role during the
Badu, yes, and that's and
the traffic robberies.
Yes, he fixed. We had problems with guys bringing out carjacks and blasting people's windshields and stealing from them in traffic. He put an end to that. Yes, the state government supported the police tremendously with equipment, and he has Tunji Disutu of the RRS doing a fantastic job. But you cannot doubt the fact that under Edgar's leadership, the police in Lagos has been like a worthy example for other states. So, and he knows Lagos a lot. He's worked at Lion, worked in Ikeja, he's been DPOs, you know, been DPO in various commands and all that. So his sufficient knowledge of Lagos is one reason Edgar has been successful here. So for so many people, when that change came, they were not excited because you don't know what you get when a new man comes in. You want to stick with someone that you are used to so that success story can continue. And the new man felt, let us return Edgar to that place. Edgar suffered non-promotion for years. When Edgar was CSP, some of his mates were already commissioner of police. This is a fact. So, and to tell you that his cosmate is already an IG, that should tell you how sometimes quota makes people to suffer in our country. So if he had been promoted when he needed to, like others, Edgar won't even be a commissioner of police at this point. And he doesn't have so much time left.
That's true.
He doesn't have so much time left. So the new IG has left him has returned him to Lagos, and we can only hope and encourage him to continue the good work that he had been doing.
Well, Wahid, the police, it's a police command. Is there really anything wrong in having Edgar changed or posted to another place? We see a lot of that happen, you know, everywhere. It happens like every day. Recall that prior to this time, a particular group had also protested the move, you know, given some political reasons here and there. How relevant is that to the issue of policing? Shouldn't we just take politics entirely out of it?
Well, there is no way you can divulge politics completely from some of these things that is happening now. You know, it is not by mere coincidence that anytime election is approaching, you see a situation whereby top policemen, especially CPs, are being moved around. You know, the truth is that for you to really successfully in any election, you must have the backing of the police. You know, that's why you see politicians, you know, coming to play a major role in who gets what, especially during this time around. But if you look at the
who gets transferred, transferred our
you know, it's happened in Kwara. You know, when at the height of
9 CPs in
the crisis, you know, between the then governor Lawan and the incoming governor Saraki, you know, The first thing they did was to change the commissioner of police. And when they changed the commissioner of police, those who are political watchers knew that that is the end of Lawal. Because the new commissioner of police is coming with a mandate, with a particular mandate, go and do this, and you get it done. But if you look at the pedigree of Edgar, he's a fantastic policeman, there's no doubt about it. Right from the day when he was DPO of Shomolu, a fantastic operation person, we all knew what he did about Bado. But the issue remains that there's policy in all of this. It is interesting to know that there are certain states that police officers lobby to go into. Lagos is one of them, whether we like it or not. Akwa Ibom is there, Rivers is there, FTC is there, mobile police force is there, then foreign mission.
Diplomatic protection.
These are the most sought after.
You mean those ones are more juicy than
I think that there's no doubt about it. There's something about it because this is not the first time. This is not the first time that we're having this kind of situation in Lagos State. It happened under Owosheni and Edgar.
Even the Edo man, the one who was head of LASMA.
Okay. Is it not Areba?
Young
Areba. The only difference is that this one, the man was about to hand over, to the man. He has already conducted him round the office for him to get familiar.
He got an order from above.
And got an order from above that look, the status quo should remain. If you look at the picture of the two gentlemen, it tells us all.
The body language.
You look at the body language of the
Let me bring Emeka into this conversation. The perception that when postings are disrupted, few weeks to election, that he has political undertone, is doing a great disservice to the police force and the neutral role they're expected to play during elections. Do you expect the new IGP to, work things out and perhaps make things better this time?
I hope he does. I hope he does. I mean, if you look at the comments of Nigerians, you see that the expectations from this new IG are so high, because a lot of unnecessary drama. The tenure of the immediate IGP, witnessed a lot of drama, unnecessary confrontations with people, and then name calling. You saw even the first PRO calling governors, calling people names. I mean, these things are not necessary. The police is a respected institution. I mean, the average policeman should be, deserves respect. It's somebody that should carry some form of authority because of the duties, attached to his position. So the police should not just now become like the typical, just any kind of agency. No. Professionalism should be restored to the police. Nigerians have said it again and again and again. So yes, coming, a few weeks to the election, fine. I think postings should be routine. There shouldn't be any drama because I was even alarmed. I read a report in National Daily about the drama at Force Headquarters where Egbeto parked his car in the space for Imoimi, and then Imoimi came parked somewhere. I think all those things are not...
each other.
Yeah, and then all those things are not necessary. But again, you may not blame. I wouldn't blame both men because, of course, an IG was leaving, a new IG was coming in. So, you will expect some kind of maybe, some rough edges. It was even reported
in some papers that there was mild jubilation when the order came from above. Yes. But what should we expect subsequently? Because new postings are normal things before election. Must we always read certain meanings to them?
They are not supposed to be normal. They've become normal because of the crude politics that we play here. Where the police force is truly professional, you can trust anyone that is posted to work in your state. But that is not the situation. The Nigerian politician wants to corrupt anybody that he gets in contact with, whether you're a policeman or a teacher or an ad hoc staff of INEC. He just wants to make sure that he can compromise you. So the feeling over the years is that once a police boss has stayed for so long in a state, he will have fraternized so much with politicians that he will never do his job with fairness. So that is the thing. And given the level of corruption and all that in the police, the feeling is that there are not many people that you can trust to do their job dispassionately. There are not many people that you can trust to not harass opposition elements. There are not many people that you can trust to not carry out orders that will question their own professionalism. So that is the thing. So for that reason, look, this one will come, oh yeah, replace everybody. You can imagine an IG ordering the replacement of all DCs, all ACs, and DPOs in a state. How do you do that? How do you carry that out? Until the president said no. So we shouldn't, leaders of the police should not be pandering to the whims of politicians because they would destroy professionalism in the force. That is the thing.
And unfortunately,
we should be able to trust anyone that is sent here. And anyone that is here, we should be able to trust that person that he will be professional.
That's right.
And when policemen seek to be professional, politicians shouldn't be reporting them to the president because I know they do it. I don't trust that one. It will make us lose the election. Politicians shouldn't be harassing policemen who, in good conscience, have chosen to be professional and have chosen to do their job with the fear of God. When that stops, then you can expect that things will improve.
Talking about police being professional, we don't seem to have seen the proper investigation into their conduct during elections. You know, in time past, no prosecution, no allegations. I mean, elections just pass and then we go to the tribunal. Nobody talks about the conduct of the security personnel.
There can never be because they are doing the bidding of politicians. Most of these politicians, when they eventually get to the power, into power, they will look for a way to give them protection. Because in the it's like a case of rob my back, I also rob your back. You know, I help you as a policeman. I got into trouble. You know, you have to look for a way to get me out.
I can't prosecute
you can't prosecute. The best you will get is to give the person a slap on the wrist.
We have to go now. The new IG, the acting IGP says that the police will be neutral. Can we go to bank with that promise, especially as we count down to another general election?
Well, I can't speak for him, but I hope he really keeps his promise. And I hope, like Jide said, that politicians will allow the man to keep to his promise. Because he's not coming in, he's coming in a very turbulent period. You know, already, you know, there are fears about the fact that violence will break out during the elections, will be violent, and all kinds of things. So, I hope, sincerely, I wish him all the best, you know, but I hope that we can one day have a police force, a Nigeria police force, that will be more of a Nigeria police service than just an instrument for coercing people, and then that will not be an institution for politicians to kick around like football.
We have to go now. Ebeka Matunago, Wahid Bakari, Babajide Koladio Tisoju. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
And that's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Bye for now and God bless Nigeria.